Hi there, it's Alexis Arthur from Pacific Forage. Just wanting to give a little bit of a recap on last year with regards to the corn season prior to me coming and talking about this season. First, I want to apologize that I'm even discussing purchasing next season's corn, as some of you probably even haven't cleaned equipment. I absolutely know. I've seen some people today who are actually don't even have all the corn out or corn off the field, and some don't have grass all off the field. So it has been a long, interesting fall, but I still feel it would be useful to have this little chat before I come and knocking on the door. Why did we have the season we had? Well, many people are putting in a little higher heat unit corn these days. Why wouldn't you? It's been 4 years of a lot of heat and a potential to really pull in some yield. And this year didn't provide that heat. As well, some people unfortunately were dealing with some real rootworm pressure, but ultimately it was a cooler, wetter start and a odd finish with regards to jumping around rain. On the weather note that affected all, I got asked a lot about heat units this year, so I thought I would just quickly do this. You'll find a link to farmwest.com. I know you guys can all bop in there yourselves and do it, but it's just interesting to note across the board the significant difference between last year and this year. So again, you can click on farmwest.com. You can literally put in the day you planted and the day you harvested and the closest location you can find based on their weather stations, but plunk that in. The dates I put in are May 15th, so say it was a May 15th planting, and September 15th coming off. I appreciate people went longer than that, but I'm sticking the 15th in there because a lot of you in your brains were like, well, I can take it off in September. So here's what you were looking at. Abbotsford Airport this year was 2527 heat unit. Last year it was 2677. Chilliwack this year was 2607 heat units. Last year 2785. Agassiz 2603 this year. Last year 2765. Langley 2310. Last year 2396. That's the closest one of the group. Maple Ridge was 2541 heat units this year. Last year 2671. Pitt Meadows 2690 this year. Last year 2861. Richmond this year 2476 heat units. Last year 2628. Delta North this year 2482. Last year 2593. Up in the interior, Grindrod, 2589 heat units this year. Last year, 2716. Hullcar Road East and that Armstrong area, this year, 2627 heat units. Last year, 2911. And then on the island, I just, not as many choices there, so I just took these two. North Cowichan, 2416 heat unit. Last year, 2583. North Courtney 2366 this year. Last year 2533. And then finally Creston 2692 on heat units this year. Last year 2970. Firstly, on the weather, obviously down this way we had this cool wet start which delayed a few people from going, and then this January hit, and if you'd already got it in, the corn was not going ahead as you wanted it to. And if you didn't, because you were waiting for that soil to heat up, you were delayed through June too. If you got it in June, it wasn't popping up out of the ground. So of course, even days on the front end can be weeks at the back end with regards to dry down. So that had a great effect. The interior, in a bit of a different way, was all prepped and ready quite early and could go, but it wasn't heating up. It wasn't warming. And they were clear skies, but it wasn't providing sort of the environment to get that seed in. And then when they did, it did not rain. It did not rain. So dryland really suffered. And that with those with irrigation had some great success. But then as a whole, there was a big hit of rootworm up that way. And on the island, depending on where you were, some great crops. Sometimes it happened over here too, a little less body to that product. Across the board, not as large cob, not just on the island, but anywhere. But overall throughout the province, we just saw fewer heat units and a harder time to dry down. So seed choices for next year, I'm not saying change all your choices, but maybe you want to look at doing a little lower heat unit in certain areas, maybe on the farm. Maybe you've got some fields where you've got to go back to, I think we'll put a little lower in there. So I know I can get it off, and I know I'm going to have some grain content there, because you may have a lot of feed in those bunks, bags, or piles this year, but you may not have as much energy. You may not have as much grain or starch. And I know you can bring it in. But the idea is, this is expensive stuff, and you want to get the most out of it. All right. So you'd like to get that grain off of it and have it in there. And then you're not going through it quite so fast. So this year, if you grew 2,600, maybe you want to look at some 2,400. Or if you grew 2,400, maybe you want to look at some 23 or 22. Okay. Do a little bit of work that way. And just keep in mind some of the fields that might be most valuable to do that in. Rootworm pressure. So I referenced the interior. It's been around there a little bit for the last couple of years, but it hit this year hard. It took some corn down. It affected some pollination, or it did neither of those two things, but there were just bugs everywhere. So if you saw bugs this year, you're going to see more next year, and you're going to have some effect on your roots next year. So we have a lineup of rootworm treated products. We can talk about rotation. If you can rotate, that's the easiest and the cheapest thing to do. But if not, we've got a line of products. I know there's this real concern about only higher heat unit products being rootworm treated. That's what the guys and gals down here dealt with these past years. But now the companies have made some real moves forward. So we have a low heat unit rootworm. We have a couple mid heat units, and we have some high heat units. So there's a range of products. So if you have questions, concerns, I'll put in links for the ministry information on rootworm issues, but also give a call. Let's have a conversation. Send an email, send a text. Let's have a conversation if you've got anything about rootworm choices and decisions to be made. Down here in this area, maybe people around you have had rootworm, but you never had, and this year you got it. Let's have chats about rotation. Do you wait the 4 years? Do you do it in 3? Let's have some time conversations about that, and as well some of the traded products that might be available. Maybe when you're talking about corn this year, if you've got some concerns on heat units, look at Spring Vigor. Spring Vigor, in a description about corn, references cool wet starts and its ability to hold its own and get through a cool wet start. So ask some questions on that. Look at those text sheets. Ask me some questions. Get clarification if you have on heat units. If you were using something and you're wondering, is it really that, or how many days, or what does this mean? Heat units here are different from the prairies, Ontario, the US. So define what that product grows like here, not just what it says on the bag. We trial them. We know we can provide that information and have some really clear answers for you. And finally, if you have questions for me specifically, I'm obviously going to come out and see you, but we have some payment incentives, early pay, early bookings, end of this month, beginning of December, mid-December, end of December. If you want to do some bookings, if you're happy with what you have, get in touch with me. I will be phoning people, but if you want to jump on a booking or make sure you're going to save some money, get in touch with me, and we'll get some of those bookings in place and get that taken care of. I am very aware that corn is an expensive product to grow. We want to get the most out of it and get the biggest bang for our buck, and sometimes those early incentives really help with that. As well, some things get popular and they go faster than others, so do reach out. Okay, so I'll be around soon. Let's have those conversations and book some seed. Thanks so much.